like in Big, whenever he like wishes he was an
Yeah,
adult and he goes to play Zoltar, and then Zoltar's gone. It's like, oh, that's the thing that did it. But it's like, well, explain that thing. It's like nobody ever really asked that. It's like, well, it was the magical machine, you know?
hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. And I'm your host, Joe. With me, the person who's been secretly trying to go to the Olympics his entire life and guarantees that he will go in one way or another. Let's hope it's not to cause trouble. Nick, how you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Yeah, been trying to go. I thought I thought I would go whenever it was in Japan, but it turned out I was about 6 or 7 years too early. And then it's in France now. But you know, I about the allegations, so I can't really be showing up in France right now. Anyway, and
Not allowed to leave the country, actually.
yeah, not
So
allowed to enter the country, or if I do, I can't leave it. Yeah, that's. I don't know if you've ever seen inside of a French prison, but it's not something that you want to be in. It's just very, very, just a lot of escargot. I'm just not down with that. Anyway, so should be in the United States again. I think next time around in 2028. Also, I don't really count the Winter Olympics. Sorry, I just am not a wintertime sports guy. People I meet and they say they love the Winter Olympics. I'm like, okay. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for the next time it comes. Definitely won't be in France watching it. I could be, maybe, but I won't be. So don't look for me there. Um,
well, I do recommend playing if you and your friends like to drink. I recommend playing the just the Olympic Flame game. Every time you see a commercial and they show the flame for any transition, you all take a shot and see
oh
how long
man,
you last.
God, that's a good way to end up in the hospital. I feel like that just sounds. So I can
It
understand like a beer, like a sip of wine, maybe, but my goodness, a shot.
yeah, and it's like playing the Christmas game of putting a Santa hat on your TV on the corner, and then whenever someone's head lines up with the Santa hat, when they cut to, while you're watching a movie, you take a drink. Yep.
That's pretty good.
So
I
like,
actually I like that. That I might have to incorporate that into my repertoire. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing okay, Joe. Making it. How are you?
doing all right. Yeah. It's finally starting to settle down. Weather, temperature's getting better over here. So, yeah, just unfortunately a lot of stupid yard work and a lot of small things. But no, can't complain. Can't complain. We got here a very light news week,
Oh,
and we are finally catching up on a few things that we've been playing and watching that we haven't gotten around to talking about. But we're gonna keep this a little shorter than usual. So we'll see how that goes.
we're gonna
But Nick, take it away with the news.
yeah we're gonna do the old eight for play tight 60 today.
We're gonna
So
fail, totally fail.
yep, that's why it's the eight for play tight 60. They actually stick on it pretty good, but anyway, so yeah, not too much that we just felt like just had to get to in the news. So um, just one main story here today. SAG-AFTRA video game workers are striking as of July 26th. So yeah, they are not going to be that union is not going to be doing work for places. They apparently, they had strikes last year. I think that like ended in September. I think last year, and they've been kind of moseying along since then. But Joe, you and I kind of remember that the video game section of those strikes got snubbed more or less. And
Yeah, I remember the key topic was about AI voice work and stuff like that, and they kind of got brushed aside while the main the Hollywood acting crews got what they were looking for, but as far as voiceover work went for like anime and games, like I feel like they got kind of shunted, and there was still a lot of AI stuff that was allowed to go through. So I forget the exact details at the time. So I wasn't really aware of them currently going through this. So you brought this to my attention today. So yeah, can you expound about a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so the AI is the main sticking point as it was with the other one, and so basically, the article I read, the quotes I was seeing were along the lines of they're just not seeing enough in the contracts that regards AI sternly enough. They're saying that they're not seeing actionable things that they can do if a company were to use AI on certain aspects. There's probably a lot more in the details and the weeds that I am not going to get into on here, but yeah. Um, so they're striking right now. I mean, I guess who can say when it's going to end? Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I feel like AI is coming. It already sounds all right in some ways. It's definitely not going to give you the same depth or breadth of a performance. But as far as getting a voice to sound like a standard normal talking voice, it's pretty good already. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know like where we're going to end up with it ultimately and what ultimately they can do. Is it just going to be big companies that don't use AI, or and then like little mom and pop shops are going to be like, well, we're going to use AI, and because we're only like a 2-person development team, and then you can have voice in your game that otherwise was just going to have text. I can kind of see that as an advantage, but yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that AI is going to sort of take over more or less, but the performances are going to be less nuanced. And what do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I feel like it's an inevitability, unfortunately. It's until some serious legislation happens when people start getting really badly scammed, and nefarious uses of AI voice and looks start to come into play. I feel that there's it's until there's a precedent, they're going to allow it to run rampant. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think you have a good point of like smaller groups, smaller mom and pop, like or indie developers would do better with AI, because for example, like traditionally if you have a couple voice actors, voices, they might be people, people on staff. But if you don't have a lot of range and you want to try to get accents and stuff like that, uh, AI is probably going to do it better than the average person. But at the same time, I think now is your chance, Nick, to finally be the scab that you always wanted to be and fill in for all those voice roles coming up. Just cover everything. Be the Troy Baker of the scab world for voice acting, and
Yeah.
it's like once you make your voice everywhere, then they can make an AI version of it, and then I'll just cut you out of the podcast.
Yeah, that'll yeah, I know. You'd like to do that, but it wouldn't have the same. It just wouldn't be as stupid. I know that. It might.
You're a good foil for me. So yes, but no, yeah, I think that I'm hoping. A lot of major projects have probably been done already,
That was,
right? So
sorry, that
a
was a
lot of
really.
major games coming out this fall, so it's actually a good time for game developers to like.
Mm,
Like a lot of the actors are like, yeah, we have a lull now. Now's the best time for us to strike, and then before the new projects come up, and the things that are slated for 2025, the next big games. This is probably a strategic play on their hand. Uh, they can afford to take the break, as it were. We'll see though. I mean, obviously voice acting, it's important in what we're interested in. And yeah, the voice acting, the AI is getting better, but there's some clear examples of some games that have used voice acting that is just the biggest trash fire around.
yeah.
And yeah, it's there's some anime that sounds so bad to the point where like it feels like it's AI generated as well. And new current stuff, which is like I haven't bothered looking into it, but I was just like, yeah, it's like it really does feel like it's all just fake. So like because it's so stilted, but it could
Yeah.
just also be new people, non-native English speakers, trying to do English dub. Who knows? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know, like on a from like a larger perspective about like AI in general, and being in movies and games and stuff, um, and then like news is kind of what I was really going for with this is like news, like what's true, if you've got, I mean, there's already some pretty good ones of like Joe Biden and Donald Trump, like video of them like playing games and like you know shit talking each other and stuff like that, saying just like horrible stuff, and it doesn't sound perfect, but it sounds really close. um it sounds really close, and and I guess in some ways it's almost like their speech is just too perfect, too fluent, to be the real person, either way. But I'm just wondering if this is going to, if people are going to dive into AI head first, like as a consumer, and just be like, oh yeah, this is great, this is fine, or if people are going to go back to live things like the drive-in, well, not the drive-in, but like, well, yeah, like drive-in, like food and like skating rinks and parks and stuff, where it's like the only way that I know that I'm interacting with a real person is like is literally being in reality and being out and literally seeing them in reality, because a lot of dudes are going to be like, I'm going to AI my voice and I'm going to make an AI bot and it's just going to talk to my girlfriend, and so she can stop bothering me while I like play games or whatever. There's gonna be a lot of dudes that do that, and vice versa the other way too. And I'm just like, and that's gonna blow up in people's faces. There's gonna be a whole phase, a whole like 6 months of that, and then people, I don't know. I can just see all this stuff getting very weird for a while, and I just wonder how much people are gonna go back to reality, um, once it's settled in.
I think that's hopeful that people go back to reality. I actually think that I hate to break it to you, but most of a lot of drive-throughs are already experimenting with AI voices for the automated thing of going to McDonald's. A lot of them will be like, "Can we, blah blah blah? Can we take your order?" Is in a mobile thing.
Yeah,
The moment you give an answer and that's not part of their usual, then all of a sudden you hear the voice cut out, and it's like, "You are a different gender than the box that was speaking to me."
yeah,
So obviously that was an AI setup, intro, and
yeah.
so I think
It's like,
that's actually it's more integrated than you realize. I think the
no,
fact
like
is you're gonna
yeah. I mean, like I see
more
that.
worries. Yeah, instead of being like the automated talking to your spouse or something, I think it's going to be more of a phishing scam. People on trying to sucker lonely people or something like that,
Oh,
or the
definitely though.
elderly,
Yeah,
pretending to be with AI facial capture and stuff like that. You can make yourself look a lot different, a lot prettier, and with your voice, the AI voice assist, you can most definitely make it so you can start suckering people for and just doing that kind of stuff, nefarious acts.
yeah.
And
I mean,
that those are the things
like
that it will
all of
take some
that
time.
I know is gonna happen. And I know the McDonald's thing. I've gone through the drive-throughs where it's like, "Are you using our mobile app today?" And you go, "No," and they go, "What you need?" It's like switches over to like some teenager that's tired of being there. But like I know like all that's gonna get integrated. I think people are more or less okay with that. Um, as far as like conveniences, but I'm just wondering about when people, uh, like, are people going to get sick of that when they have the choice? Are they going to be like, okay, I need to go be around actual real people instead of robots, even if
There's
they're pretty good
there's a
sounding?
subset of people who will want that, but I think that you underestimate our laziness as a society.
Yeah,
People are comfortable whatever's the most easy thing for us to do. I think people are more accepting, especially like you got the older crew like who are very much who will fight it, but at the same time when they realize, oh, I actually have to go out and do stuff and go out and make the extra effort, that's just a step too far.
yes,
like
yeah,
so people who have always been social and always want to do group stuff, that's still that they won't change.
yeah,
But for the people in the middle, it's there in the middle, and chances are going the extra effort is too much effort. So it's easier just to accept the new AI overlords and just roll over. It's not necessarily the answer we want, but it's the reality of the situation, in my opinion. I mean, I'm also, it's a little more bleak. I prefer, like, I would, knowing myself, it's like, I would prefer this, but also I'm lazy, so I'll probably do that. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
instead of actually trying to get change for the betterment, I'll just sit here and complain about this is how it should be, but I'm not going to actually do anything about it, to make it better. So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
All right.
That
Well, like I
was
said,
bleak.
as far as the SAG goes, good luck to them. Trying to, with their strike. Hopefully they come up to, I don't know, an agreeable terms, but I think it's an uphill battle. So,
Yeah, I know they're probably trying to get stuff to future proof it, and I know that the good game companies are like, we really only got a hold. I mean, to me, if I was a game company, they'd be like, yeah, we're gonna do this round that way, but like, we only got to hold out for 5 more years, 10 more years max before we can just do all of it without anybody. And so, but I think they probably need they need actors, they need acting to get put into databases so they can work off of it, later. But
well, yeah.
anyway, but we'll see. We'll
I
see how it
mean,
goes.
all the kids growing up with Troy Baker and Nolan North now as small children, when in 30 years, when, like when they're already said and retired, they can reuse their AI voices to hit nostalgia factor and then come up with a bunch of a new wave of games that are all, it's like Nolan Lights, voice acting, but like all the old people were like, that reminds me of my. I'm gonna buy that game.
When I played Uncharted 2, yep, 3 and 4.
All right. Now, that's really about all we have for the news this week that we felt like talking about right away.
Yeah.
But we've skipped a little bit of last couple times for what we've been playing and what we've been watching. So I'll kick us off real quick with what we've been playing. I don't know, it was like 2 podcasts ago. I mentioned how, we mentioned how we really went into Animal Well and we had a good time with it. Really got to, expound upon that. Since then, the following week, I actually ended up platining the game. And that is the level of depth that I've realized I'm willing to go with that. The game has quite a bit more to offer and some really wild stuff because I started at that point. I'm like, I'm ripping off this band-aid and I'm going to look up stuff. And I was just like, wow, that is a depth and like oddity that I'm like, I don't understand how people figured this stuff out. So just minor spoilers for Animal Well, real quick. So last time I mentioned how I hadn't collected all the eggs, so there was that, and I hadn't figured out the cat puzzle at the time, and there was just a few other puzzles that I hadn't figured out. So essentially, in order to collect all the eggs, you actually have to finish the cat puzzle, and the cat puzzle happens like I had gone through pretty much the entire map multiple times with multiple new light fixtures. So you have like the lamp, you have a black light, and so I had gone through searching everything for new hidden uh, light or like the flute puzzles, and around the cat area, you'll end up finding multiple hidden area things, but you need some extra tools to get all the. You need to at least collect 16 eggs, I think it is, or 32. I think it was 32 eggs. You need to collect 32 eggs to get the spinning top, and the spinning top will break portions of loose ground. And by doing that, it'll you can like find hidden areas to find some new flute uh, puzzles to unlock the cages for the cats. There's that, and once you unlock all the cages, you end up visiting. There's an area with a giant cat. And since if you unlock all 5 small cages, the giant cat will then start to hum I forget how many notes, but it's like a 60 note bar or something like that. Um, and it unlocks this big cage with essentially a hamster wheel. So like where the ostrich was,
Oh,
when you're first going like spinning on that wheel, you
yeah.
unlock a wheel for yourself, which then lets you roll over spikes. Um, and it lets you get when there's a hidden egg that we mentioned before, like when in the area where you drop down. after you get past the whale puzzle and you drop down to face the seahorse, to the side of the map there's a little tunnel, and you can actually access that tunnel from the giant cat area. I did it in the most probably obtuse way possible, but you go through there, and then there's literally a treasure chest on a set of spikes, and you can only get it because of the hamster wheel. So the what ended up happening was, like, I collected all the eggs. I only had to look up one egg. I caught them all except for one, and
Mm.
I didn't just see the you later on you get a bouncy ball. It's called the B ball, and I realized it stands for breakout. The old video game where you
Oh.
launch the ball up, because you hit there's certain blocks. Because I started going through the levels, and I found one or two spots where you can break open some areas. But in the kangaroo map portion of the map, there's an actual map that's outlined like the kangaroo. You have to defeat the kangaroo a number of times to collect a number of disc pieces to unlock his special door. And I did not realize there was a hidden area that's also kind of connected to the adjacent back end of the monkey spot you were talking about, where the monkey's throwing seeds.
Yeah.
There's actually a hidden spot where you can use the ball to break open a couple
See,
spaces.
yeah, okay. I was wondering about that little weird spot there. Okay.
Yeah, so it's but yeah, that's where I needed to find one of the last missing egg. So that was the final time because I had gone through the map multiple times at this point, and I'm like, I just don't know what I'm looking for. I just can't find it, so I had to look it up, and because I'm like, you can see on the map where you're missing, and there's people who have charts, so like the quadrants of eggs, and so I just quick looked it up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I was literally there just like not that long ago. But yeah, I found it, collect the egg, and then it gives you, if I remember correctly, you get the last egg there, which kind of makes sense because there's that incubator near the manticore. When there's a throne essentially. There's a throne room. You put on the throne, manticore comes to life, and you quickly do a couple small things to get to the final ending, the true ending,
Mm.
which. And that is funny because I sent you a screenshot when I finally beat the game. It was just under 20 hours or something like that. And it was like last time I had saved was like an hour ago. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this game. I'm not going to try to recoup an hour's worth of lost progress.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, which is fine, but I looked up some, I happened to go through, by going through a bunch of this other stuff, I discovered some extra bunny rabbits. I discovered one through my normal game, like between start of the game and first ending, first credits. There, I found one of the secret bunnies, but then I found at least one or two more throughout this extra gameplay, and then I ended up having to. I started trying looking at that like there's an amount of puzzles with the flute that become like just asinine. There's the whole flute mechanics and how to read bars, or how they have the numerical system and stuff like that. It's based off a clock to the side of where the chinchillas are.
Mm.
You use the black light to see, because there's a clock that you can't really tell until you have at least the lantern. You can see the clock. Then the black light will show you kind of the pattern. And it's just like this game was amazingly done as far as all the extra layers. But I believe also at the same time, I think the rabbits are all secretly like. I remember on just the YouTube algorithm popped up a thing for me saying like, like things people didn't like, weren't expecting, or something like that, weren't expecting to do so soon. And one of it was like they showed a photo of Animal Well, and it was like developers thought this would take months, and I'm like, but it showed the portrait of the rabbit, and I'm like, and I quickly jam stop. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this. It's spoiler, but like I figured. So apparently, that was like a puzzle that was going to take longer, but it turns out the gaming community found it much quicker than normal.
Oh.
And I was just like, all right. So it's one of the few mysteries that I haven't actually fully dived into, but I just happened to see some of the other the rabbit puzzles. And you're like, yeah, you go to this area and you put in this crazy flute combination. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even know how you got there. And that's just too much for me. I'm done. But no, I got all my items for my inventory. And so it's like, I got the true ending. I solved the few major puzzles I wanted to get, and that was fun. It was a really good game. I really recommend it. If there's more for it, if you really want to dive into it. But after getting that platinum, I was just like, yeah, I'm good.
There's
I'm
more after
absolutely.
the plat. I guess. I guess platinum is just certain level. But wow.
Platinum is just what they had, like. And then the only other thing is like I think I looked up how to scare the squirrel or something. That was like the last the last trophy I had to get for my platinum. Was and that is
Okay.
just you go to the iguana area, and you get a key door to unlock it. You unlock the back end of the door, and you slowly walk up to the squirrel, and then you can steal the nut. And then it gets surprised and runs away. I'm like, oh, that's cool, because I think you naturally would find them. Like it's natural to go through that door, but you just roll on him like normal. Like you're going to try to talk to him, and he just runs away. So you're supposed to go slow, and then it gives you the chance to steal. So
Nice.
yeah, like I said, that game was surprisingly like in depth, and like kudos to the team for making it or whatever. And it's just like that is a great first outing. Now you've set the bar yay high, so you're gonna have a real hard time to like surpass it, and because people are just gonna all eyes on them for anything else they make. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. But
then real quick, the uh, same Metroidvania kick I've been on lately. So Dead Cells. I saw at the local library they had Dead Cells, the Return to Castlevania edition, and I hadn't played Dead Cells since like the beta. Uh, so it was. I remember the game being. I felt like it was a lot more randomly generated, and the whole point of it was, say roguelike game where it's run based, and you're supposed to. It's all about speed. Like you get rewarded for getting to the end of the levels very fast, which is completely counterintuitive to the way I play, because I like to explore every nook and cranny of a map. So I feel like since then, this game's been out, and people have loved it to death forever. Um, and so I've been always wanting to give it another shot, but it was just, like I said, it had a really minimalistic pixel art style and like didn't quite mesh with me, and I always felt it just felt a little off for like like it still does for me. Like jumping feels a little floaty. It doesn't have like the weight that I'd like for a jump in one of these games. I know it sounds really weird to complain about something like that, but you can easily enough get over it. And I've put in a handful of hours into this game now, like probably like 8. But my runs are really slow in comparison. Like you get bonuses for like, it's funny because it's like complete the level, and it's like they expect you to get you unlock a special door, which gives you special extra materials if you got there within 8 minutes. I'm like, that's cool. I'm here in 20.
wow.
So I am most definitely not in your peak time. Um, but there's different paths, and like I feel the game has actually become way easier, or maybe I'm just able to play this game better just as a whole because I'm used to what this game was expecting. Uh, but it still plays phenomenal. It has a lot of neat charm to it, a lot of neat collaborations and joking tie-ins. It has a really good sense of humor. I found like the Valve outfit set, so you get like I got the crowbar from Half-Life, which is actually really effective. There's but yeah, this new Castlevania tie-in. After a couple runs, you finally run into Richter Belmont, and they let you go into essentially the outer castle layer of Castlevania, and then they kick you out. And then they're like, after a couple more runs, they're like, yeah, so you can come back. You can come back like once a run, essentially, to unlock more stuff. But the game slowly also lets you drip feed new abilities, new power ups, which is interesting, but at the same time it's frustrating because you're like, all right, I can't break this flooring, but I know that eventually if I go a certain path I'll have to fight a monster or a boss, and they'll give me the ability to break through these floors or ability to wall jump, stuff like that. So it's it's meant to be played multiple times. I just feel like I'm playing it most definitely the wrong way, but also I explore the whole map first, find out where my exits are, and then choose the exit maybe I haven't gone through before. And yeah, it's really fun. It's really good. It's like I can still see why people love it, but once again, it's just the whole speed running aspect of it is most definitely not for me. So that's why I feel like I'm having fun playing it my way, which is very much feels like I'm being punished for like being counterintuitive to the way they want you to play it.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
feeling I got whenever I did play it a couple years ago, that they wanted you to go fast. They wanted you to go bang, 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 this, just like get into like if not like blazing speed, then they wanted you to get into a flow, of not really messing around or really exploring stuff. I guess they don't really value that. Like it's like all going to be the same thing. It's just mixed up and procedurally generated. But ultimately, you're going to see it all. You just got to kind of keep doing the run over and over again. So that is kind of against your play style a little bit, I would say. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're having a good time. I don't remember enough of it to be able to say it was floaty or not, because I'm not a huge platforming guy or anyway. So, but it was pretty good back then. I'm glad you're having some fun with it, especially with the Castlevania theme. Is pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. And you mentioned it, I think, before that you were just starting to dabble in it, but now you've gone more into Frostpunk again, right? Getting ready for the sequel.
Yeah, getting ready for the sequel to Frostpunk, which will be Frostpunk 2. So I realized that I was like, I'm gonna go start back up, and then I was like, where is it? And then I realized that I had played it on Game Pass. So I could fire up Game Pass again, but I don't immediately have how much time I spent on there available to me. I'm pretty sure it was like 40 hours or something like that. The first time that I got, maybe it was, I don't think it was even that long, to get through and beat the game and the main section of the game.
I think I remember you saying it took you only like 3 or 4 tries, playthroughs to get to see credits.
Yeah, it wasn't too many playthroughs. I did have like one late restart because it's just like, okay, I'm just stuck, too much. But anyway, so I've been replaying it, and I figured I would get familiar again because it's been 2 years since I played it the first time. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get familiar with the main game and then switch over to the DLC, which was my main goal, was to play some of that. But I ended up playing all the way through the main game, the main campaign again, because I'd forgotten a lot of how some things worked. And then I was able to but it just kind of sucked me in. I was like, dang, this game, I forgot that how much I really like. It's not that I'm just like, oh, that was so cool, or oh, I'm having so much fun, but just so compelling. Just the next turn, next thing of that game. The loop of that game is so good to my brain that I ended up going all the way through the main story again, and then I switched over to the DLC, and there's quite a bit of DLC, but I've kind of been stuck on the first DLC that I picked, called The Rifts, which is an endless. So the conceit of Frostpunk is basically it's a city builder, more or less, and it's set in a steampunk era, England, where the world is frozen over and you have to survive based on a generator. Well, in the Rifts, you're not in a pit next to a generator per se. There is a space for a generator, but it exploded previously before you got there, or was ruined or destroyed. And so your job is to rebuild the generator, which is a thing that takes a while. You have to get this, and you have to do this, and they have like temptations for you to hurry up and rush through things, but it makes things bad later if you do that. Yeah, and so the other conceit with the Rifts is you're not in a pit, you're kind of in a canyon, more or less, and you have this main like island that you're on, and then there's big cavernous drops over to another like island, and then so you have to build bridges over to each section, and you don't have a generator, so you don't have a normal way to boost, your heat abilities other than kind of slowly upgrading your insulation and stuff like that. And it's been hard. I have a ton of sick people because I'm not able to really keep them warm enough, and I've just been kind of threading the needle, barely able to stay alive. So it's been very compelling, very riveting, I would say. But yeah, so I'm enjoying that, and so I bought the game. I guess I should finish that little story. So I bought the game on Steam this time because it was like dirt cheap. I think it was for everything. It was like $10, from zero. So I've put in a ton of hours back on that game again. And I don't know how much more I'm going to get to play really, because I need to move on to something else. But I wanted to try to finish up this run of the Rifts and do something different, and maybe dabble in the other DLC. But I do want to give it a bit of a break too, because I don't want to be like Frostpunked out by the time Frostpunk 2 comes out. I just want to be good and lubed up for the next Frost. But it's a fun game. I was thinking about it as I was playing it again. I was like, dang, I think that this has got to go in like my greatest of all time. Not like objectively, not like this game is better than Mario 3 or something like that, but like just objectively or subjectively for me in Nick's personal greatest of all time. Pretty hard to stand up to the number of hours and like time melting ability that this game has had for me, where it's just, that feeling where you get a new game or you get a game that you're really into, you look at the clock and then you go back to the game and then you look at the clock again and it's like 4 hours later and you're just like, how did that happen? Anyway, so I'm enjoying it. It's been fun.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, you're good and primed for the new one. So, all right. Well, now let's go to what we've been watching. You've been trying to talk about this one for like 2 months now, so we just have them been pushing back to make time. So, what do you got here?
Yeah, Suzume. I watched Suzume a while ago, and it's a really beautiful anime movie, directed by Makoto Shinkai, the next Miyazaki, kind of being crowned that. I think that's kind of fair. I think there's a debate to be had there, but I kind of understand it. And I got to give, Suzume, I'm going to go ahead and say the score I'm going to give it a 7.9 and change there. I think it's just a hair shy of 8.
I mean, it's safe to say that, up and coming great, or it been labeled as a great director. And so when you say like holding it to Miyazaki, it's not being like I'm gonna replace Miyazaki, but it's more like a Spielberg and Lucas situation where they're great. They're labeled as great for the things they've done, and anything that they come out with, you will take notice. I think that's when people get up in arms when you're like, the next Miyazaki. Well, they think, oh, you're going to replace them. Like, no, it's animated, yes, but it's not 100% the same. It's not meant to have the same vibe. It's not meant to have the same, like they're very different tonal shifts compared from one director to another, but still a great director.
Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna replace Miyazaki, even if Makoto ends up being better in the long run. There's just always going to be a place for Miyazaki in the pantheon just because of what he's done is so good. But so I guess I should kind of go through a little, just tiny summary of what this is really actually, about. But that kind of is where kind of my biggest problem with this movie, is that because I didn't see Weathering with You. I will eventually, I will eventually see it, but I did see a long time ago. I saw 5 centimeters per second, which I thought was pretty good at the time. And then I saw, the name is escaping me. It's
Your Name.
Your Name. Yeah, there you go. I saw Your Name a long time ago as well, and I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Weathering, I'll get to eventually. I skipped over it because I just wanted to see the new hotness in Suzume. This movie is about a girl is the protagonist, the main protagonist, and kind of secondary protagonist is a guy, and they are, late high school age. I forget exactly. And there is some magical chicanery going on, and not to get into spoilers, there's just some magical chicanery going on, and she has to solve it. They kind of try to solve it together, but ultimately it's kind of more her that like has to solve it. And they go through, and they win in the end. Sorry, spoilers. Dang it. And everybody it's kind of happy. It's a little bit romance, a good bit of a little bit of romance, a little bit of comedy, mostly kind of adventure, and fun for all that is. But, kind of that guy plus girl plus magic that we don't really. Okay, spoiler. It's going to get into more spoilery territory. I'm not going to go whole hog, but I am going to touch on some stuff. So, guy plus girl plus magic stuff, and the magic stuff we don't really go into in detail. We don't really tell you the rules. It's just kind of like, hey, there's this stuff, and we got to solve it because it's doing bad things. It just feels kind of like we're making the same movie over and over again. And that's my biggest problem with it. That the girl feels kind of generic. The guy feels more generic than she does. They're likable. They're very likable, but like in that generic kind of way. And I'm kind of watching it and I'm just like, man, this has got a lot of great things about it, but it just feels like I've seen this movie a lot. And I understand why they do that. Big time movie, big time director, studio is heavily involved, producers are heavily involved, and it has to succeed. And so because of that, it's going to go right down the middle and be very formulaic in being a successful movie. So that's kind of the worst thing that I can really say about it. I would say another thing is the side characters. Many of the side characters don't have much use or really good reasons for being there. They're just kind of like, this is sort of this tropey character, not super tropey, not hard tropey, but a little bit tropey. This guy, and then that girl, and on and on. And then I think there's probably some continuity issues that I could bring up if I was to dive in, but I'm not really worried about that so much. I think they've got other bigger fish to fry. And then just the last things that I'll say about it, the good things, because this is a 7.9. I know I'm pooping on it hard, but the good things that I will say about it is there's two characters in this. The chair is a character, and the cat is a character, and they are pretty interesting. They're pretty good, well done, I would say. the chair is a 3-legged chair, and it runs around, and it's just fun. It's some of those things are pretty fun. Um, and the thing that really propels this, and that makes this a very good movie, I would say, as opposed to a meh movie, a true meh. What earns it its near 8 is the animation. And every time we talk about Makoto Shinkai, it's always with animation. The animation is just top freaking tier. Sometimes maybe a little bit too much computer generation going on, but they blend it very nicely almost all the time. Even when they don't, it's not egregious. It's fine. It's good even. But when they really want to, make the animation just butter smooth and look so good, just so bright and full of life, it is really quite amazing. And the other thing that I really like about this is just there's plenty of whimsy. There's a lot of whimsy that is going around. If you're not into whimsy, this is not for you. But it's just very like magical, but not too serious, and just fun in a lot of ways. So it's a good popcorn movie. Turn your brain off on a Saturday night. Watch a good old anime movie. I think you could do worse. You could do worse. So I enjoyed it, but I think what I feel is that we have a potential Miyazaki on our hands in Makoto Shinkai, and I think that it makes me sad because I think that the studios and everybody that's involved is probably making him do things that are going to make money instead of what he could do, imagination wise and purely creatively. That would just really be amazing. But yeah, it's a good movie. He's a good director. That's what I got to say about that.
All right. I mean, I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet. The last one I saw was the Kimi no Nawa, or Your Name.
Yeah.
But I did really like, I remember, was that 5 centimeters per second being a neat film, and I remember thinking this is someone's attempt at making an art film.
It is artsy, yeah.
And then I remember seeing The Garden of Words, and that one was like a short film. It was like an hour long, if I remember correctly. And I remember it was just very different. It was like almost a little depressing, like a little bit brooding. There was an overtone behind it, but it was also one of the key themes was like doing this thing, like going out when it rains and like going to a gazebo, and this kid wants to be a cobbler essentially, and him working on his shoes, but he meets a fellow person who's skipping work while he's skipping school, and it's that person skipping work because and they do it when it rains as well, so they kind of have a weird dynamic relationship. It was an interesting story, and I remember being, and then it was funny because when Kimi no Nawa came out, it turns out the one woman in the Garden of Words, she's a background character. So then everyone's like, oh, it's okay, so now it's a connected universe. And I remember they're supposed to, from there, they're like, what minor connection can you make to like Weathering or to Suzume? And I it's like, it's interesting that it's all in the same world, I guess, if it is all connected, which would explain their non-explanation of magic, because that was the only thing I really had against Kimi no Nawa, was the fact that they're like, and we time travel just because we have this connection just because.
It is a little bit the same thing. Yeah, is happening in Suzume. Is there like, why is this happening? It is, deal with it.
Yeah, and so once and that was like, if I can shut off that major plot hole in my brain, and then I'm like, okay, this is enjoyable, but it's unfortunately because it's like it's such a key piece of the story that I'm like, if you can't explain that even in a one-off like MacGuffin, like we have, I don't know, 2 parts to a whole of thing, an ancient tablet, I don't know, anything, just give me anything. We prayed at the same type of shrine, I don't care, just give me some sort of MacGuffin where it's like to just write it off. Then at least I can be like,
like a
I can
Zoltar,
accept it.
like in Big, whenever he like wishes he was an
Yeah,
adult and he goes to play Zoltar, and then Zoltar's gone. It's like, oh, that's the thing that did it. But it's like, well, explain that thing. It's like nobody ever really asked that. It's like, well, it was the magical machine, Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But at least it's there. It's not like he just wishes for it and then like a twinkling in the like sky all of a sudden it happens, or like oh shoot, Mel Gibson and What Women Want. Like lightning strikes a transformer near him, and those sparks gives him the ability to read women's minds. Wait, what? Like was he hit
Yeah.
by that? No, he wasn't hit by it. He just magically sees the thing that happened and that affects him. I'm like, that doesn't explain anything. But that's supposed to be the magic MacGuffin, which makes him read minds. So like, I want at least something stupid. Like, at least you can hate on that one part. But that's the thing is, if they don't give it a proper explanation, then everyone's going to hate on that specific part.
I
So
mean,
for them, it's easier to just not write it and just be like, we're just going to have to deal with it. This is just how the world works.
I guess I mean, to be fair, they not going to sit here and retract my statement that because they don't really explain the magic and the stuff like that truly, but they do kind of give a little bit of that Zoltar, magic machine, or, they do give a little bit of that, I would say, as to how this girl kind of goes into this magical aspect of our world. So there's a little bit of that, but it's still, but there's too much other stuff to me to not try to explain it. And then there's kind of ham-fisted personal growth stuff that
I'm also
could be
very
better.
tired of all his posters. His movie posters have been so bland forever.
Yeah.
Since was a Voice of a Distant Star, the place promise in our Earth,
Early days, something like that.
or early days,
Yeah.
early days. I
I've
thought
heard of
that
that.
was Voice of a Distant Star for the longest time because those covers are identical, or not identical, but they're pretty similar. Then you got Kimi no Nawa, Weathering, and Suzume. It's just like guy girl cover, expansive sky. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, late 90s, like Christian pop album covers. It's just, it always looked the same.
Yeah, they are. There are a lot
It's a
of
weird deep cut, but
a lot of
it's very much
sunshine and clouds and blue sky. Christian
everyone
rock
looking
covers.
off differently and looking pensive. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. The quality is always good, like you mentioned. And I think the fact is there's not very many directors who are doing more or less original content on a big screen. That's the thing, is everything's adaptations, everything's a summer movie event for a shonen property. So usually those aren't even like canon, or you're doing a summary of the season, in a theater. So like, yeah, this is essentially the movie event of the entire first season or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's so to have it just be a standalone, I mean, we need people like that. We who are unique, who have at least the vision and the pull to do something like that. I think a lot of it, I know you're kind of using the excuse of studios controlling them. I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. My argument would be probably this is more entitled to since there's not many other people, this is him doing what he wants and getting to do most of it. Maybe it's not necessarily up to the other standards of quality, but I would say Studio Ghibli hasn't been of quality of note for me, at least, in last handful,
Well,
to the
yeah.
point where I stopped watching a lot of movies because they kind of hit a hard, like Miyazaki stepped down and they kind of got other people, so Ghibli just kind of wasn't the same anymore.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is that I think it's in the script, process. It's like you have to submit a script, you have to submit all this stuff before anybody, that's between Makoto and the script writer or and them in the studios. There's not very many people involved, and they're going to be like, and that's when everyone's going to give notes and stuff like that and say, well, and it's going to get watered down. That's sort of the beauty and insanity, the genius and insanity of Miyazaki, is that a lot of times he starts his movies with no script. He's just freaking drawing. And they're like, it's not even drawing. He's not even sketching. He's like doing animation. He's like animating live. And it's a crazy way to do things. So he's probably the last of his kind, or the last of the Mohicans here. But he, but like, I think that's a way to bypass some of that stuff and make it so good or bad, better or worse, his stuff always feels at least a little bit unique, even though it is always like, Mother Nature versus evil humanity or whatever. There is still a little bit of a uniqueness, from story to story. Anyway, so I kind of think that's just what I envision that's happening to Makoto here. But you're probably right. There's something about this type of story that he likes, and it's not that they're identical. You probably could have made this argument about Miyazaki, in the 2000s, after Princess Mononoke and then Spirited Away, and it's like, okay, we got, they're pretty different, but you could make an argument that they feel similar, maybe. So yeah, it's probably what he wants to make for now, because he probably likes to count those Ichiman ends that he's got stuffed in his.
That's the highest bill that you come up with. No. All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, he loves counting those. Translate to US dollar of like $60.
Yeah.
But okay. Anyways, so for me, I finally got around to watching that Gran Turismo movie that came out last year. Gran Turismo, the video game franchise, they pulled a movie, and which was interesting because I was like, wait a minute. The whole thing's based off a true story about them running a contest to see if a kid they can get a sim gamer into a real GT become a real GT racer. And the story's about Jan Mardenborough. And I knew his story from just I enjoy racing. I don't get to watch it as much as I used to. Kids kind of do that to you, but like his real story, I'm like, okay, there's some oomph to it, but I was like, where is he going to end? Because I'm like, I don't remember him winning any major like series, as it were, like
Oh.
him finishing so I'm like, I actually really didn't know how it was going to end, which is one of the reasons why I don't like a lot of documentaries about things that we already know of for sure. Like, well, if I know the real story behind it, I don't need a dramatization to really ham up the fake and add a bunch of fake stuff into it to really like push that, But in this case, I'm like, well, I knew he was still racing, but I just didn't know. Like, I honestly hadn't paid much attention to his career. It was a neat start to his career, and that he was a competent driver. But that's all I knew. Like, I knew he wasn't like bad. Yeah, this movie helps explain a lot of that, and it ends overall, I'd say the movie's entertaining. For if anyone likes racing movies, if like I would say that this is most definitely a neat story. How much of it is one that is dramatized, I'm not 100% sure. I found it had some big name actors in it, like Orlando Bloom of all people. Like, I haven't seen him for ages.
No.
You have David Harbour, the
Yeah.
guy from Strange Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he ends up being like the chief, and it's just funny because they have him walking around with a Sony Walkman the entire time for a lot of it, an old cassette Walkman. Yeah, and I'm like,
Why?
I'm trying to remember. I'm like, okay, this was done back how many years ago? Did this whole career start? I'm like, yeah, that's just hamming up. I'm like, it could be based on reality, but at the same time, I'm like, or like it may be maybe the dude had a device that he used to listen to music a lot. Was it a classic Sony Walkman with the classic yellow look?
Is it a movie made
It
by
might be
Sony?
true.
Yeah.
It was,
Okay.
and I'm like, so every time it was funny because and it wasn't until the end of the movie. I'm like, every time I heard a song, I'm like, okay, I'm just curious how great it would be for Sony just to license only Sony music throughout the entire thing. No, they licensed everything else. It was fine,
Okay.
but it was just super funny because I'm like, because they played like Black Sabbath War Pigs, and I'm like, I don't know if I don't think that's a Sony, like, so it's just, once again, every time I heard a song, I had to double check. No, turns out, yeah, like, turns out a lot of Warner Brothers and other stuff, so they licensed a lot of that music, which was fine, but I just thought it'd be hilarious if, like,
Whew.
if you had a poll of a company like that, like, you can use any song you want in our catalog, and then just to be like,
It's probably got a
that'd
pretty
be
good
kind of
catalog,
hilarious.
but yeah, that would
Yes.
I'd save him some money. Probably cut some red tape too. So
No.
I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a good story. Just literally going from a kid, playing games to like post just out of just trying to enter university or just early in university days, and his passion for a game, to getting the chance to actually compete. Though there was an early scene where him and his brother and a friend are like, they're at a party and they're kind of driving away, and then they more or less get pulled over by the cops, and so then because of reasons, they're like, okay, we literally can't get arrested, we can't get in trouble, so he drives away. And so there's a fun little car chase scene with them outrunning the cops, and then in his brain he starts to see like the optimal lines for turns, and then the first thing I said out loud was, "Oh, great! Now they're going to give the excuse that the video gamers can't tell reality from video games now." You know, they literally see the world differently because that was like in his brain he's seeing like the way he would look into the Gran Turismo
Oh,
video game, and I'm like, it's silly, it's stupid. Yes, people probably see things, like I know most definitely I've looked at certain times where I was like, oh, okay, we're coming around a corner, and, like in a game, and I'm like, this is the most definitely the optimum line. It may not show it to you, but like you
mm.
you can think stuff, but it's just like
It
him
sounds
doing
like
it
a
in reality,
translation more. It's not because like when you get good at something like that, then it's kind of a translation for the audience. And yeah, you're not literally seeing the line anymore. The like dotted line that shows you the best angle. Uh, it's just like okay, I have the feeling now, and now we're going to translate it on the screen so the audience can understand. That's how I would give give it a pass on it. But sometimes it is sort of silly to see that.
Well, I actually really enjoyed the fact that they had some of the Gran Turismo sound effects in this game. Like the starting the lights changing color, or like they'll do it just occasional noise here and there, and I just kind of laughed to myself. I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that. Um, there's not really much to tell, just other than it's a simple story from like the underdog story, and it ends at Le Mans. Like it's like it's a great I love the Le Mans as a race. It's a
Yeah.
classic, it's tradition.
Lamont.
Uh, yeah. So it's really neat and I actually didn't realize like the way this ended. I'm like, I actually had to look it up afterwards. I'm like, okay, so essentially due to issues or due to pushback, they really made it. They tried making a team of sim racers, because 24-hour Le Mans has not been a single man race in many years. It's a team of three, and so they got some of the other sim racers that didn't qualify. Obviously there's only one winner, and that'd be Jan. But some of the other guys that were in the program, they got them together to do the 24-hour, and so long as they podium placed, that was going to be their real pushback to all the naysayers, saying, "Hey, sim gamers, can actually be real racers." And so yeah, that's I didn't know about that at all. Like I completely just missed any of that, fluff, I guess, or like any of the hot topic debates at the time. Uh, I think I was overseas in Korea at the time. I was like, yeah,
Oh,
that was the farthest thing from my mind. So, but it was just like, okay, that's cool. It's a good way to end a climax, and yeah, not going to spoil much of anything, or but it's just like I was pleasantly surprised with the movie.
okay.
Um, but it's also because I knew less about it. I mean, it wasn't like everyone knows.
Like if you'd been
Um,
following it
like
closely, you might have been a little bit
I would have
put
skipped it
off.
100%.
Okay.
If I knew his career, if I knew it's like that's the thing, is if I knew him well, his career, then I would have skipped it. Just like most war movies, or like the Battle of Bulge, or like whatever, like any major military outcome. I'm the one that I remember. The first ones I skipped was the Tom Cruise Valkyrie movie.
Oh, yeah.
The failed assassination attempt on Hitler. Like, yeah, that one's been well documented already. Don't need to see some a bunch of other added fake Hollywood stuff to it. So movies like that just kind of bore me. That's why I have a really hard time with them. But this one was good, and plus also my kid likes racing. Like, so anytime race cars were on there, but it's funny because in the beginning they're showing the video game. He's like, where are the real cars? I want the real cars. He didn't want just to see them playing the video game. So I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'm
fair.
like, you go, kid. Yeah. No one wants to see someone else playing a video game.
It's like
Uh,
I hate to break it to you, but there's this thing called Twitch, uh, and you're
yeah,
gonna
right.
anyway.
It's like when you get old enough, you might appreciate someone else playing a video
It's
game, and then there's a
nuanced.
certain skill level to playing a video game that you really want to watch.
It's an acquired
Um,
taste. Yeah.
or like with games done quick, where I think he had oh, what was it? The dog ended up beating a game. I can't remember what game it is now. Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, there's the games done
I remember
quick.
that was
Uh,
yeah, or that happened.
yeah, and they did they had one where the guy trained the dog to do certain button commands, and he dog the game, and I can't remember what game it is. So I'm bearing the lead. So look that up when you have the chance.
Yeah, look that up when you have the chance.
But no, for sure. So surprisingly a decent movie about a video game that most people couldn't think about. Like it just there's no other way for it to translate.
Yep.
Like if this thing didn't happen, it's like taking the Need for Speed license and trying to make a movie out of it, which they did, and it turned out pretty bad for obvious reasons because there's no real story.
Yeah.
So all right, I'm gonna quick run down a few new anime that have come up that have finally gotten English, dubbing. So one of them is the first one off that is Bartender, Glass of God, and that one has already been that was like 2 seasons ago, I think, done in Japanese. Essentially, it's like Dagashi Gashi, which is like a thing for like a anime about junk food or kid snacks. It's essentially food porn for alcohol. It's all
Mm,
about the making becoming a bartender or the serving of drinks super luxurious and trying to make it's foodie porn, like, but it's all about alcohol. So it's neat. The presentation's nice. I remember seeing a bunch of clips when it was first airing. People would be throwing it up a lot, and yeah, they dramatize it to a certain extent where uh, everyone wants to have that experience. The reality is no one gets that experience, But yes. Anyways, it looks interesting. I'm finally giving it a shot because it's in English. Because I didn't really care enough about it. I'm like it, but it's yeah, why not? It's only episode 1 down, but I'll give it a shot as it comes out. Uh, Now some of the stuff that it's also like, but because this is like a couple seasons old, it's like it kind of brings up the question of why are these things getting dubbed so late? Um, and also like certain ones like why is this getting dubbed at all? Like there of all the good stuff out there now, there's why are you licensing something that's already done? Like at least with Bartender Glass of God, that has a fandom behind it and it's decent quality.
okay.
But then you get something like The Unwanted Undead Adventurer. I'd mentioned this when I was watching this in Japanese. It was okay. I mean, it's essentially an adventurer who dies in a dungeon, gets cursed, and comes back as a skeleton. And he starts to level up. He realizes he can continuously go. He doesn't have to rest, but he has his consciousness. And then he starts to evolve into like a zombie or a ghoul or whatever. He starts going up the ladder to having more meat on him, essentially, and then eventually being able to talk. But he's just able to power level because he's in a dungeon and he's forever living essentially. It was okay, nothing special, nothing. It wasn't atrocious, but it was just like, all right, it came and went, and then now it just got an episode 1 dub. I'm like, why? Why did you feel the need to like? Was this under contract from before? But then why are you waiting so late to finally dub this now? I don't
But
know. It's just I
but it
feel
was
like
it's from a couple of years ago. It was at
it's from at least 2 seasons ago.
okay. Mm,
A couple seasons ago. Yeah, maybe last year. I honestly don't remember. It's either early this year or last year. I just remember it's been out for a bit, and it just makes no sense. It feels
yeah.
like we gotta dub something. All right, well let's grab the bottom dredges of the chip bag and see what we can grab. Like it's not the best thing, but it's like yeah, this will do. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it sounds like they maybe just they just like didn't get around to it, and they were supposed to, or maybe it had some weird surge of popularity or something, and they're like, oh well, maybe we can dub this then or something.
I
Sometimes
mean,
stuff gets
it was a
discovered
unique
later.
idea. It was a unique idea that kept me interested, but at the same time, it just never went anywhere. Never really. It. I do not. It's funny because like poster girl, like adventurer, she's only in it for like 2 episodes, and then she's gone. Like the rest of it, it's like I was always wondering when she's going to come back around. She never does. I'm like, okay, it's just
Weird.
yeah, it's a really odd one. They have another one that's coming out. Shy season 2. I mean, Shy is a really interesting, well done manga. As far as the art is very unique. I'm like, that's cool. Season 1 came out, and I'm like, this is completely mediocre. It's just about a bunch of heroes, people being chosen to be heroes, and this girl just learning to be a hero, but not in any really cool, flashy way. It's just middle level road drama, but like, I don't know. It's just the villains are just mediocre, and it feels very disappointing. Season 1, and now they're dubbing season 2, and I'm like, yeah, that's why. Just why? Like, you really don't need to. Like, we're better off not. But one of them that I am surprised about getting is Our Last Crusade of the Rise of the New World. Now, this one came out a while ago as well. Season 1 did, and it was fun. It's an adventure anime, a world of like witches or magic users, a country of them versus a militaristic country, and they're just at war. It was nothing too crazy, but it was just a fun, different story. It was an isekai, and it was just enough, But it's a weird. It was one of those romance, like, you're on one side of the team, you're part of the enemy, and yet we keep on randomly meeting each other out in the world or in a neutral space city, and it's like the guy and girl end up falling. It's like a Romeo and Juliet-esque thing, but it's just like it really didn't like. It kind of ended okay, but also very much on a cliffhanger, like not a like what's going to happen next, but it's like there's a lot of unanswered questions. um
Uh,
and they had a season
Loose
2.
ends.
I'm like, oh wow, season 2. I'm like, that's cool. Season 2 is coming out. I was actually really surprised that they're doing a season 2. And then I'm like, but only in Japanese. Oh, the last one got dubbed. I'll wait, and I'm expecting this one too. And sure enough, it did. It's episode 1 got dubbed. I'm like, okay, I'm personally invested into it because I'm already season 1 down. Will I recommend this to anyone else? You got to go watch this? No. But will I recommend it over other things? Yes. So it's like it's not a bad one to watch if you like overpowered people, like, if you like the idea of magics and swords and firearms and weapons. It's like, yeah, this is kind of in that like weird, dystopian, fantasy future world, I guess, is throwing all these word salad sandwiches together. But yeah, it's just it's not bad, and I'm just happy they got season 2 for my sake. But honestly, it's not really worth it. It's better than maybe the undead or unwanted undead adventure. But yeah, I'm just happy it got season 2, so I'm surprised. Then there's I mentioned last time or 2 times ago, Alia. Sometimes Her Hidden Feelings are in Russian, and that one was a rom-com that was pretty cute and pretty funny. They got that one dubbed now as well. So I think it's 4 episodes out in Japanese. It's 2 episodes in English. The dub is good, but I think there's just a little bit lost in the intonation or some of the voice tones and stuff. There's just a little bit here and there that just isn't quite right, but it's still solid, and it's the content's good enough. So if it's a matter of not watching it or like if you're only going to watch it in English, and if it sounds like, oh, it's not matching the Japanese to 100%, like, it's fine. Just if it's your choice of not watching it or watching it in English, totally watch it in English. It's worth it. At least I think so. I'm still doing it in Japanese, but I watched the first 2 episodes in English just to see the quality, and it's not bad. I mean, worst case, if life got too busy for me and I had to just step away, like sometimes you just don't get to watch all the things in a week, I would catch up with the English version. I wouldn't have a problem with that. So yeah,
Yeah, that one it seems like it would be difficult to dub because you're talking about a show. I mean, I haven't watched the show yet, but what I imagine from what I'm hearing is like it's a show that's already about translation from Japanese to Russian. Kind of that's sort of the joke, the conceit. Um, and then so that's one dimension. And then when you have to go from English into Japanese, and it's going to be a different vector on a lot of those lost in translation things, or different ways that is conveyed. I can see how it's just adding another variable to when there's like a kind of already another random one. It would be hard. I can see that.
Yeah, like I said, they do a good job at season or but I'm sorry, episode 2 to change one of your my expectations. I'm like, oh, I see where this is going, and then episode 2 and then I'm like that they changed it up. And they surprised me. That's fun. And then episode 3 comes on, and then they're like, oh, and something else I had thought I already knew. They switched it up on me again. I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad that I've had my expectations, changed, or like they surprised me multiple times. So it's not just very tropey. Like, a lot of times you can see the plot twist like a mile away or something like that, or like, okay, and here's this archetype, and they're like, oh, you switched it on me. Okay, that's funny. It's different. You're still doing a different archetype, but at least you played with it a little bit. So I'm like I said, I enjoy it, and I'm recommending that one. So yeah, if you have a choice, if you're a sub purist, then go ahead, Japanese, but then if you don't have the time or you don't care, then English is, there's nothing wrong with the English dub. But I think it's worth watching. All right, real quick, last one of these new anime that's getting English dubbed is that I'm going to mention for today is episode 1 of VTuber Legend: How I went viral for forgetting to turn off my stream. Now, I quickly mentioned this to you before. It's silly, and this is that kind of like the right kind of stupid in a lot of ways, at least so far. I've seen a lot of gifs and like little memes posted about this already, but I wasn't gonna give it a shot because I just didn't care. But you got an English dub, so I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll just kind of play it in the background. And the quick synopsis of this one is, hey, uh, a VTuber uh, doing a prim and proper like princess character uh, turns off their stream, but computer stalls out or whatever, doesn't realize that they didn't turn off their audio, and their stream is still happening. They just video no longer going. Uh, so they continue. Then they just proceed to relax and let down their hair, as it were, and just talk brash and start watching some other streamers while drinking Strong Zero, which is their like super heavily promoted alcohol drink. They bleep out a different beer company because they make reference to a beer and they bleep it out. But then they just completely like opening credits and everything is just all plastered with Strong Zero. Which, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like the Mike's Hard, tall boy.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a zero sugar, strong, being like a, I don't know, 7% alcohol. Depending on which ones you get, they vary. Um, they're not bad, but they're also not great. But they're one of the first ones to come out when we were in Japan, and so I've had my fair share. And they usually do really cool summer or like limited edition summer like flavors, which were
Mm.
always really fun. Um, but it's the kind of thing that also can give you massive gut rot. But yeah, this person is more or less a uh like I don't know, they seem like a middle-aged alcoholic who's just really addicted to these things, and they're watching other streamers, and essentially the way they react, a lot of dialogue is pretty fun. Of course, everyone's then like they end up passing out, and the next morning they wake up and their manager calls them up because essentially this person is part of a VTube group, essentially, so like assigning an agency. And so that person, like the manager's like, hey, I just don't freak out, don't say anything, don't dox yourself, don't freak out, you need to turn off your stream. And so yeah, they pretty much go viral overnight for all their shenanigans and speaking out loud and stuff like that. And it's like I said, it's silly, it's stupid. I think it's entertaining. I think it's worth it in English, at least so far. But it's also something that's most definitely just so random. It's like to the side. I don't think it's anything particularly great quality, but it's also, like I said, it's the right kind of stupid. I can't say that enough. Now the rest of the episodes, who knows? It just they may just peak at episode 1, but I've seen enough like gifs here and there, so I think it'll be okay. Um, the one thing I was kind of disappointed off is like in the real world they still show the person as their princess persona. The whole point of a VTuber is for them to like be showing a person that's not them, essentially.
Yeah.
So when she's slamming beers or slamming the strong zeros, it's her and looking like she does as a VTuber in like a princess dress, and I'm like, come on, like you can make it you can make a frumpy, frumpy middle-aged, drop high school drop or college dropout. That's fine. You can make it a, like a 40-year-old man. Come on, like that's a little too close to reality for you, I know, but it's just like I just like the way this person drinks. You're like, yeah, you're either you're like you feel like a college dropout or like a mid-30s, like nothing else better. Like, but they have to make it for merch. Like we got to make them look pretty all the time, and so I find it funny. But yeah, it's there you go. Now the last one we're gonna talk about is I finally got Nick to go around and watching Oshi No Ko.
You want to talk about Oshi No
Yeah,
Ko?
yes, let's break into this.
Okay. Okay. I don't know
We
if
got we already passed our 1 hour. We can knock this thing down. We got like 10-15 minutes. Let's
okay.
go.
So started watching it, and yeah, dang, it's really good. I didn't really know they were going to go where they're going to go with it. I kind of wanted to read the manga, but I also, I didn't have time, and also I'm kind of content to let the anime play out here. Um, Man, it is gone in a different direction than what I would have thought, I guess, basically in the last season. But it's really good. It's refreshing, I guess, rather than like jarring, because it's close enough. That it's extending the things that were happening last time. But yeah, it's really good. The writing is good. The characters are good so far. We've both watched through episode 4,
Yep.
and there's a bit of a breakthrough at the end of episode 4 in one thing. But yeah, so I'm really liking it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get around to it, but I'm glad you told me to go ahead and fast track it because it is quite good.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, one of the things I like about this whole story arc is, um, so right, kind of leaves off where season 1 ended. Aqua is now going to be in a stage play of um, essentially like a manga or adaptation, and
Yes.
so it's a neat, and they hinted at it, they talked about it before, um, and Kana is going to be playing like uh, a sidekick who fan favorite like love interest, um, and I'm forgetting his girlfriend's name. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank now.
Akane.
But
I think it's Akane.
yeah, so she's playing the in the story in the play that they're doing. She is the love interest. So they kind of hired them as a couple. Like, oh yeah, we know that these people are going out, so we're gonna hire them as that set.
Yeah.
Um, and I found it interesting that they did a lot of fun jabs back and forth between Akane and Kanan, which is
Yeah.
hilarious. And the whole, but now you're stepping into world of stage acting, which is, the whole season 1, or the ending of season 1, I should say, showed Akane being like a weaker character because through the reality show and having like her mental breakdown kind of thing. So, but this is her world. This is where she excels, and she's considered a prodigy at that. And you can kind of see her when at the end of season 1 when she is essentially good at profiling, and she profiles um, I from so Aqua's mother. She profiles her really good to the point where she kind of suspects a lot of things, and but
Mm,
she's also able to like turn on that acting switch, which is really cool. And I'm glad that they end up bringing into play, like, I guess no pun intended. They talk about the theater and how the new theater is. I've actually seen a performance somewhat similar to this, not to this extent, but like very much a more dynamic play in Korea, where it was like you had the extra screens on the side. You actually had a lot more performance going on. It was like a neat shift. And I was like, all right, so I kind of had an understanding that it wasn't the traditional style play. But Aqua is in a mindset of, oh yeah, this is like a high school theater production. Very plain, very simple, and he gets to get introduced to one of the funniest references was like it looked like a spin off of Prince of Tennis,
Mm.
but it's about table tennis instead, and it's just watching that, seeing the still images made me laugh so hard. Yeah, this whole story arc has been really decently paced, and there's connections to the previous season when they did the drama show, and it was something sweets. Shoot, I can't remember. But anyways, it's where Aqua does his breakout role as a villain.
Sweet Today.
And
That's what it's called.
Sweet Today. Thank you. And Kana is the main heroine in that one. So, but that author, the mangaka, happens to then be friends with the new play production, like that manga author, and so there's a connection and like through a line through there, and it's just really decent how they're connecting. But unlike how Sweets Today was a kind of a bomb, this new author is just like, no, I'm going to stick I'm standing up for myself, and I'm going to like I think I've been complaining about the way this thing has been written from the beginning, and just throws a wrench in the whole plans. Be like, no, I'll rewrite this whole screenplay.
Yeah, that happens
So
in like what episode? At the end of episode 1, I guess, is the bomb
yep,
that they drop, because it is out of character based on kind of what you're seeing, and
she's very timid. She's very meek and doesn't want to, very
very
shy.
shy.
But then all
Yeah,
of a sudden, out of nowhere, at the end, just like when she goes, can we make some changes? And they're like, well, what changes would you? She's like like everything,
yeah.
just like
Just the way she says it in Japanese, because she has this little like voice and like, well, Zenbu, and she just
yeah.
like drops like an octave. And she's like, and
And
she
then
says
they zoom
everything.
up in on her cat eyes and just very very serious
Yeah,
tone.
all of it. So I am impressed with how this show, this series, is not a slave to its main characters. Aqua's been in it, but not all that much. Um, and so, I mean, he's been in it, but I think that the other characters have been in it a lot more. And then some of the episodes, like I guess it was episode 4 where I don't remember their names, but the Sweet Today and the two mangaka, Sweet Today and Tokyo Blade mangaka, work together. It's basically the whole episode's about them. There's a little bit with Aqua and the others, but they kind of have the lion's share of that, and they're both pretty much brand new characters to this season. But it's really good. They do a really good job of establishing those people in the 3 episodes prior, so that they can carry the episode 4 just fine. And it's really good. It's makes me think that the manga probably just has really fantastic writing and story crafting, which makes me more excited to maybe read it one of these days. But yeah, the show
Yeah,
itself is just very good. Also, I really like, sometimes you can really see the style of the manga coming through in some of the stills, or some of maybe not quite so much movement intensive, and even sometimes in the movement intensive shots. There's a really nice flowy sort of way that some of the characters and their faces are drawn, especially the hair and stuff. It's cool.
yeah. The what was it? So the Tokyo Blade author, it's like they've been doing, it's a lot of focus on them as a character. I agree. It's nice. The fact that it's one of the jokes. I just remember being like, so it's yet another season of Ruby just taking a back seat.
Oh yeah,
Because she
yeah.
was barely, you felt like she was snubbed out of the season 1, and there's not much progression. But I'm like, you gotta get past this story arc, and then it's gonna probably, my guess is the next story arc is going to be heavily on her / Bikomachi, is my thought.
Yeah, and they
So,
they they
but
come back and visit her, a little bit, I guess, in that first episode, and then again, like in 4 or something, and they basically, or 3 or something, and they basically are like, so when Kana is done with all this play, then you'll get to do another tour, and so it's like they're kind of winking at the audience, saying, we haven't forgot about Ruby, but we don't have jack shit for her to do right now, so sorry, enjoy the
yes,
other stuff that's actually pretty good. Anyway,
yeah, it's pretty good. It's very, like I said, but by the end, like episode 4, it's one of those things that it's like I'm debating whether or not we dive into it or not, because it's I think I'll just talk to you about it after the show, and we can bring it up a few episodes down the road if you want, or if you want to talk about it now,
it's up to you,
because
dude.
there's a lot to unpack for that one.
There's a
All
lot.
right, well,
It's good. I think that we've probably broken our promise on the tight 60 badly enough. We can come
we're,
back to it anyway. We
we're half
probably will
hour
anyway.
past.
Just a half hour. But we can come back. I mean, we're probably going
50%
to come back to Oshi anyway. So I think that we can maybe save that stuff. It seems like it's season plot key stuff that has happened in season or in episode 4 there at the end.
Oh yeah, and it's like a number of potential red herrings in there too.
Mm.
So for episode 4 is clutch. I would like I mentioned this before season 2 came out. I said that like chances are I'm just gonna wait. I knew this was coming out, so I'm just gonna wait for this season to come out, and then I'm probably just gonna jump right onto the manga after this.
Okay.
But it was one of those things I was tempted to jumping on the manga after season 1, but I decided to wait it out. And yeah, now that season 2 is coming out as good as it is, I'm probably just going to most definitely start reading it afterwards. But I'll be patient because I rather, like most things, watching the video adaptation is usually the best thing to do first, and then go to whatever written or source material after, second, because that way you can enjoy both fully. Because if you go if you read the books first usually, and then you go to the movie, you're always going to be upset. It's just like it's not as good as this and this, but if you have no idea uh, what to compare
Yeah,
it to,
because
you know
I mean, there's arguments the other way a little bit too, I would say, but it's hard if you read first to go, and then go to the fully voiced animated whatever, to be like, that's not the voice that I had for them in my head, English or Japanese or whatever, and it's a little bit jarring. You have to get over that hill. So you have a point there. I can see either though.
well, also, just like they mentioned with the uh, it's funny enough, it's kind of meta, but in the Tokyo Blade, they're talking about here in Oshi No Ko, the stage play adaptation and how they have to cut corners and cut things due to screen time, airtime. Like we can't have all the dialogue and all the juxtaposition because like we can't have all the nuances involved because
Character
we're
building.
spitting it into a play, and we're also and the screen and the format is different. Like we can so event it's like what the conclusion to that whole bit was, like it was really solid as far as it's okay if it's different, so long as the core of the characters are the same. Uh, but when it comes to an adaptation between a manga or a book to anime or a movie or TV series, like yeah, because you're working with less time, especially with movies like Harry Potter series or something like that, there's no way you can fit all that information in there, and you're going to have to cut corners, you're going to have to make people different. And if you read that source material, you're just going to be upset. You're like, well, they skipped this, they didn't do this and that and the other thing. But if you watch the movie first and you have no idea about the source material, like, yeah, it's a solid movie. And then you're like, oh wait, the book explains this much more of everything. That's great. And then you're getting to dive into that world even further. So that was always my takeaway from having to read. If I get the choice to watch a movie or read a book, I would prefer not to go through the movie first, because if I go through the book, chances are that movie has to be absolutely stellar for me to walk away from that movie happy, or else
Yeah.
I will walk away with regrets, and that's just not the way I want to have that memory in my brain. um
Movies do have to cut so much. TV shows I think are
yeah,
a little bit better. They have a better chance, but even then, there's still a lot of translation stuff that just makes it difficult.
yeah, but Oshi No Ko, very solid, not surprisingly, but at the same time it's very good to have this season. There's a handful of other anime that's out this year that this season that I'm look really solid. I haven't got to speak on. We'll talk about that next time, or a little, as more comes out. Uh, but yeah, it's just I feel that this season is going to be pretty solid, and I'm looking forward to it. It's I'm pleasantly surprised, especially I think maybe they're putting a little extra effort because summer break, and so therefore kids will have more time to watch. So that's at least my thought behind that. But all right, anything else, Nick?
That's it for me.
All right, well. This has been another Dead Pixel, episode 85. And Nick, what are the words of wisdom you have for the people out there?
Buy your tickets to the Olympics early, and don't get don't get arrested while you're there.
Yeah. If it's nearby you,
Again.
rent. If you're lucky enough to have your apartment, you can rent it out for some sweet coin. Unless if it's a pandemic, then you get cut off like Japan did. That was awesome. Not really. All right, guys. Thanks for making it to the end. Until next time, this is another Pixel. Y'all take it easy.
Bye.